The geodesic domes of Sentinel Base gleamed under the pale light of Epsilon Eridanib, their translucent panels refracting the alien sun's rays into a kaleidoscope of colors. Dr. Ilara Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes scanning the horizon where jagged mountains pierced the ochre sky. After 5 years on this remote moon, the view still took her breath away. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The familiar voice of Commander Zane Archer broke her reverie. Ilara turned, offering a small smile to the grizzled veteran. "Never gets old, Zane. Hard to believe it's been half a decade since we established Sentinel." Zane nodded, his weathered face creasing with pride. "From a barren rock to a thriving outpost, we've come a long way." Sentinel Base was humanity's furthest reach into the stars, a testament to their determination to explore and colonize. With a population of just over 1,000, it was a tight-knit community of scientists, engineers, and their families. Their mission: to study the unique ecosystem of Epsilon Eridani and pave the way for future expansion. As Ilara and Zane discussed the day's assignments, a young technician burst onto the deck, his face pale with panic. "Commander, we've lost contact with the outer sensor array." Zane's expression hardened. "Probably just solar interference. Run a diagnostic." His words were cut short by a deafening boom that shook the entire structure. Alarms blared as the observation deck's protective shutters slammed down. "What the hell was that?" Ilara shouted over the cacophony. Zane was already sprinting towards the command center, barking orders into his comm unit. Ilara followed, her heart pounding. This was no malfunction. They entered the command center to find it in chaos. Holographic displays flickered with warning signals as personnel scrambled to make sense of the incoming data. "Report," Zane demanded. A young lieutenant, her hands flying over a console, responded without looking up. "Multiple impacts detected on the eastern quadrant. We've lost communication with sectors 7 through 12. Sir, I think we're under attack." Ilara felt the blood drain from her face. "Attack? By whom?" "We're the only sentient life in this system." As if in answer, the main view screen crackled to life, revealing a sight that would haunt Ilara's nightmares for years to come. Sleek, obsidian ships descended from the clouds, their hulls adorned with pulsing red veins. They moved with an otherworldly grace, defying the moon's gravity. "My God," Zane whispered, his usual stoicism cracking. The alien vessels opened fire, lancing beams of crimson energy that sliced through Sentinel's defenses like paper. Explosions bloomed across the base's perimeter, shattering domes and igniting fires that burned with unnatural intensity. "Evacuate the civilians to the underground shelters," Zane roared, galvanizing his stunned crew into action. "Initiate emergency protocols." Ilara stood frozen, her scientific mind struggling to process the impossible scene before her. They had searched for alien life for so long, hoping for contact. But not like this. Never like this. A violent tremor knocked her off her feet as another volley struck dangerously close to the command center. Zane hauled her up, his eyes blazing with determination. "Ilara, I need you to get to the data core. Download everything we have. Research, colonist records, all of it. If we don't make it, someone needs to know what happened here." She nodded, choking back fear. "What about you?" Zane's grim smile was all the answer she needed. He would go down with his ship, buying time for others to escape. As Ilara raced through the corridors of the dying outpost, the reality of their situation crashed over her. Sentinel, humanity's brightest hope for the future, was falling, and they were powerless to stop it. In the data core, her fingers flew across the interface, initiating the download. Outside, the sounds of destruction grew closer. Ilara closed her eyes, silently praying to whatever cosmic force might be listening. They had come so far, achieved so much, it couldn't end like this. But as the download completed and the walls around her began to crumble, Ilara Chen realized that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Ilara's lungs burned as she stumbled through the smoke-filled corridors of Sentinel Base. The data core, safely tucked into her pack, felt like a leaden weight. Around her, the once pristine halls of humanity's proudest achievement lay in ruins, sparking cables and twisted metal, a grim testament to the devastation wrought by the alien attack. A hand grabbed her arm, yanking her into a side passage. Ilara nearly screamed before recognizing the soot-streaked face of Dr. Kai Nomura, the base's chief xenobiologist. "This way," Kai hissed, pulling her along. "There's an emergency shuttle in Hangar C." They ran, the sounds of destruction growing more distant. As they rounded a corner, they collided with a group of survivors led by Lieutenant Mira Santos, her usually immaculate uniform now torn and bloodied. "Dr. Chen, Dr. Nomura." Mira's relief was palpable. "Thank God. We thought. Never mind. Come on, we're getting out of here." The Ractic group made their way to Hangar C, where a battered shuttle awaited. As they piled in, Ilara's heart sank. "Wait," she gasped. "Where's Commander Archer?" Mira's face fell. He didn't make it. Stay behind to manually override the base's reactor. Bought us time to escape." The news hit Ilara like a physical blow. Zane, gone. Just like that. As the shuttle lifted off, weaving through the debris field that was once their home, an eerie silence fell over the survivors. Through the view screen, they watched Sentinel Base grow smaller, fires still raging across its surface. The alien ships, their work done, ascended into the atmosphere, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Hours later, as the shuttle drifted through the void, reality began to set in. They were alone, cut off from Earth, with limited supplies and no way to contact help. "What do we do now?" someone whispered, voicing the fear that gripped them all. Ilara clutched the data core, her mind racing. "We analyze what we have. Try to understand who attacked us and why. It's our only chance." For days, they pored over the data, searching for answers. But it was Kai who made the breakthrough, his eyes wide with disbelief as he called the others to his terminal. "I found something," he said, voice trembling. "Buried deep in the classified sections of the database, a contingency protocol so secret I don't think even Commander Archer knew about it." The screen flickered to life, revealing schematics and mission reports that seemed impossible. Project Phantom, the files called it. A top-secret military program dating back nearly a century to the early days of human expansion into space. They were preparing for this, Mira breathed, scanning the documents. A first contact scenario gone wrong. They created weapons, human weapons. Ilara leaned closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her horror. The schematics detailed genetic modifications, neural enhancements, and cybernetic augmentations far beyond anything she thought possible. These weren't just soldiers. They were something else entirely. "Phantoms," Kai read aloud. "Genetically enhanced super soldiers designed to combat advanced alien threats. Put into stasis when the program was shut down, hidden away on remote outposts across colonized space." A chill ran down Ilara's spine as she realized the implications. "Are you saying there might be some of these phantoms near us?" Mira nodded slowly, her tactical mind already working. "According to this, there's a secret facility on Epsilon Eridanite. If we can reach it, if the phantoms are still there, we could fight back," someone finished, hope kindling in their voice. But Ilara wasn't so sure. The ethical implications of such a program were staggering. And if these phantoms were as dangerous as the files suggested, awakening them might be trading one threat for another. As the survivors debated their next move, Ilara stared out at the stars. The universe suddenly seemed darker, more dangerous than she had ever imagined. They had come to Epsilon Eridani to explore, to expand the boundaries of human knowledge. Now, they found themselves on the brink of war. With a heavy heart, Ilara realized they had no choice. To survive, to have any hope of warning Earth, they needed the phantoms. Whatever the cost. Plot a course for Epsilon Eridanide, she said quietly. It's time to wake the ghosts. The shuttle's descent through Epsilon Eridani's turbulent atmosphere was anything but smooth. Ilara gripped her seat, knuckles white, as Lieutenant Mira Santos expertly navigated the craft through howling winds and electrical storms that threatened to tear them apart. There, Kai shouted over the roar of the engines, pointing at a jagged mountain range looming through the planet's perpetual twilight. The coordinates match. The facility should be somewhere in those peaks. As they drew closer, the seemingly solid rock face shimmered and parted, revealing the hidden hangar. Mira guided the shuttle inside, the doors sealing behind them with a resounding thud. The survivors emerged cautiously, weapons drawn. The hangar was vast, filled with decommissioned ships and equipment covered in decades of dust. But it was the far wall that drew their attention. A massive blast door emblazoned with a faded insignia, a skull superimposed over a starburst. Project Phantom, Ilara whispered, running her hand over the emblem. It took hours to bypass the ancient security systems, but finally, the doors groaned open, revealing a corridor that stretched deep into the mountain's heart. As they ventured deeper, emergency lights flickered to life, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. They found the stasis chamber at the facility's core, a circular room dominated by a dozen sleek pods, each containing a motionless figure. Ilara approached the nearest pod, her breath catching as she wiped away the condensation. The face within was hauntingly beautiful, yet somehow wrong. Too perfect, too symmetrical. The woman's eyes snapped open, piercing blue orbs that seemed to stare right through Ilara. She stumbled back with a gasp as Kai rushed to the control panel. Life signs are stable, he reported. But these readings, their cellular structure, brain activity, it's beyond anything I've ever seen. Mira, ever practical, cut through the awe and fear. Can we wake them? Kai nodded hesitantly. Yes, but are we sure we want to? These aren't just soldiers. There's something else entirely. Ilara closed her eyes, the weight of the decision crushing down on her. But the memory of Sentinel's fall, of Zane's sacrifice, steeled her resolve. We don't have a choice. Wake them up. The revival process was agonizingly slow. One by one, the pods hissed open, releasing their occupants into a world that had long since moved on without them. There were 12 in total, 6 men and 6 women, each a physical specimen that defied belief. As the last phantoms stepped from their pod, Ilara found herself face to face with their leader. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his body a work of bioengineered art, rippling with barely contained power. But it was his eyes that truly unsettled her, gold irises that seemed to glow with an inner fire, filled with an intelligence that was decidedly inhuman. I am Ajax, he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through Ilara's very bones. We are the phantoms. Why have we been awakened? Ilara swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how fragile she was compared to these living weapons. My name is Dr. Ilara Chen. We need your help. An alien force has attacked our outpost, destroyed it completely. We believe Earth might be next. Ajax's eyes narrowed, a predatory gleam flickering in their depths. Aliens, he growled, the word dripping with contempt. Show us. As Ilara connected the data core to the facility systems, displaying the footage of Sentinel's fall, she watched the phantoms' reactions carefully. Their faces remained impassive, but their eyes burned with a hunger that sent chills down her spine. When the playback ended, Ajax turned to his team. A series of subtle gestures and micro-expressions passed between them, a silent language Ilara couldn't begin to decipher. Then, as one, they faced the survivors. We were created for this purpose, Ajax declared, to defend humanity against threats beyond their comprehension. We will hunt these aliens. We will destroy them. But know this, Dr. Chen, once unleashed, we cannot be called back. Are you prepared for the consequences of your decision? Ilara looked at her fellow survivors, saw the mix of hope and fear in their eyes. Then she met Ajax's gaze, unflinching. "We're prepared," she said, praying she wasn't dooming them all. "What do you need?" Ajax's lips curled into a smile that held no warmth, only the promise of violence to come. "We need a ship," he said, "and coordinates. The hunt begins now." The repurposed military vessel cut through space like a phantom itself, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to both conventional and advanced sensors. On the bridge, Ilara watched in awe as the phantoms worked in perfect synchronization, their augmented minds interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Ajax stood at the helm, his golden eyes fixed on the vast starfield before them. "We're approaching the coordinates of the alien fleet's last known position," he announced, his voice devoid of emotion. Ilara nodded, trying to quell the unease that had been growing since they left Epsilon Eridanite. The phantoms were undoubtedly effective, but their ruthless efficiency and lack of apparent humanity was deeply unsettling. "There," Kai said suddenly, pointing to a cluster of asteroids on the main view screen. Energy readings consistent with the ships that attacked Sentinel. Ajax's lips curled into a predatory smile. "Prepare for engagement." What followed was unlike any battle Ilara had ever seen or imagined. The phantoms moved with impossible speed and coordination, their ship dancing through the asteroid field as if guided by precognition. They struck at the alien vessels before the enemy even realized they were under attack. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, slicing through the obsidian hulls of the alien ships. The Phantom's weapons, reverse-engineered from technology far beyond current human understanding, bypassed the aliens' defenses as if they weren't even there. "My God," Mira breathed, watching the carnage unfold. They're slaughtering them." Ilara couldn't tear her eyes away from the screen. The aliens, so terrifying and unstoppable at Sentinel, now seemed helpless against the Phantom's onslaught. It was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. As the last alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, an eerie silence fell over the bridge. The Phantoms showed no signs of celebration or even satisfaction. To them, this had been nothing more than a task to be completed. "Scans detect no further alien presence in this sector," Ajax reported coolly. "We should move on to the next target." Ilara stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her shock. "Wait, don't you want to study their technology? Try to communicate with any survivors. We still don't know why they attacked us." Ajax turned to her, his golden eyes boring into hers. "Our mission is elimination of the threat," Dr. Chen, not understanding it. Before Ilara could argue further, alarms blared across the ship. Kai's fingers flew over his console, his face paling. "Multiple contacts incoming, much larger than anything we've encountered so far." The view screen lit up with dozens of massive ships, dwarfing both the destroyed alien vessels and the Phantom's own craft. They seemed to materialize from the very fabric of space, their designs even more alien and terrifying than those of the attackers at Sentinel. "It appears," Ajax said, a note of anticipation in his voice, "that we have drawn the attention of the hive." As the alien armada closed in, Ilara realized with growing horror that this was what the Phantoms had been waiting for. The earlier battle hadn't been a victory, it had been bait. "You knew," she accused, turning to Ajax. "You knew there were more out there, something bigger." Ajax nodded, not taking his eyes off the approaching fleet. "We were created to face extinction-level threats, Dr. Chen. Did you think we would be satisfied with anything less?" The ship shuddered as the first volley from the alien fleet struck their shields. Ajax barked orders to his team, maneuvering them into an offensive position. "You should retreat to the safe room," he told Ilara and the other survivors. "This battle will not be for the faint of heart." As Ilara was ushered off the bridge, she caught one last glimpse of the Phantoms. Their eyes glowed with an inner fire, their bodies humming with barely contained energy. They looked more alive now, on the brink of near-certain death, than they ever had before. With a sinking feeling, Ilara realized that in their quest for survival, they might have unleashed something far more dangerous than the aliens they sought to defeat. The true test was yet to come, and the fate of not just humanity, but perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity. In the safe room, Ilara and the other survivors huddled together, the ship's violent maneuvers and distant explosions their only connection to the chaos outside. Occasionally, Kai would provide updates from the emergency console, his voice tight with a mixture of awe and horror. "It's unbelievable," he whispered during a rare moment of calm. "The Phantoms, they're not just fighting the aliens. They're systematically dismantling them, learning, adapting, evolving with every engagement." Ilara closed her eyes, trying to reconcile the magnitude of what was happening. They had sought help, a way to survive. Instead, they had unleashed a force of nature. Hours passed before the alarms finally fell silent. The door to the safe room slid open, revealing Ajax. His uniform was torn and stained with an iridescent fluid that Ilara assumed was alien blood. Despite the obvious signs of battle, he looked utterly unperturbed. "It is done," he stated simply. "The alien threat has been neutralized." As they made their way back to the bridge, Ilara gasped at the devastation visible through the view screen. The vastness of space was littered with the broken husks of alien ships, some still smoldering from the battle. In the distance, a massive structure that could only be the alien mothership drifted lifelessly, cleaved nearly in two. How? Mira breathed, her tactical mind struggling to comprehend the scale of the victory. Ajax's golden eyes gleamed with something akin to pride. "We were designed to be the ultimate adaptable weapon, Lieutenant. Each encounter increased our understanding, our capabilities. The aliens were formidable, but ultimately predictable. We are not." Ilara approached one of the other Phantoms, a lithe woman whose name she'd learned was Echo. "Are they all dead?" she asked quietly. "Did any survive?" Echo turned to her, her silver eyes unsettlingly blank. Survival was not an option we offered. The cold finality of the statement hit Ilara like a physical blow. Yes, the aliens had been hostile, had destroyed Sentinel and threatened Earth, but the totality of their extinction, enacted so efficiently and without hesitation, was almost beyond comprehension. As the Phantoms began repairing the ship and analyzing data from the battle, Ilara retreated to a quiet corner of the bridge. She found herself staring at her reflection in a darkened display screen, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. "Having doubts, Dr. Chen." Ajax's deep voice startled her from her reverie. Ilara turned to face him, struggling to find the right words. "I'm ungrateful. You saved us, potentially saved Earth. But the cost. The cost is always high in war," Ajax replied, his tone matter-of-fact. "We did what we were created to do. What you asked us to do." "I know," Ilara said, the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. "But I can't help but wonder if we've just traded one threat for another. The way you fight, the way you adapt, what happens when there are no more aliens to combat?" Ajax's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in the depths of his golden eyes. "An astute question, Dr. Chen. The truth is, we do not know. We were not designed with an endgame in mind. Our purpose is to fight, to win at all costs. What comes after, that is uncharted territory." As if to punctuate his words, an alert sounded from the main console. Kai, who had been monitoring communications, looked up with a mix of relief and apprehension. "We're receiving a transmission," he announced. "It's from Earth. They're asking us to come home." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine as she watched Ajax and the other Phantoms exchange glances. In that moment, she realized that the true test was yet to come. They had survived the alien threat, but now they faced a question perhaps even more daunting. What do you do with the perfect weapon when the war is over? As the ship changed course for Earth, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading not towards salvation, but towards a reckoning none of them were truly prepared for. The journey back to Earth was tense, filled with an uneasy silence that seemed to stretch across the vast emptiness of space. As they approached the outskirts of the solar system, Ilara found herself spending more time observing the phantoms, trying to decipher their inscrutable expressions and silent communications. It was during one of these observations that she noticed something alarming. The phantoms were changing, their physical forms subtly altering in ways that defied explanation. Echo's silver eyes now had a faint bioluminescent glow, while Ajax's skin seemed to shimmer with a metallic sheen under certain lights. When confronted, Ajax merely stated, "We adapt. It is what we were designed to do." But Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that this adaptation went far beyond their original programming. The phantoms were evolving, and she feared the implications of that evolution. As they entered Earth's orbit, a fleet of military vessels surrounded them, a mix of welcome and wariness evident in their formation. The voice of Admiral Helena Vask, head of Earth's Defense Force, crackled over the comms. "Unknown vessel, you are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." Ajax stepped forward, his golden eyes fixed on the planet below. "This is Ajax, leader of the Phantom Unit. We have returned from our mission. The alien threat has been neutralized." A long pause followed, broken only by the soft beeping of instruments on the bridge. Finally, Admiral Vask's voice returned, tight with barely contained emotion. "Phantom Unit, after all these years, welcome home. You'll be escorted to a secure facility for debriefing." As they descended through the atmosphere, Ilara couldn't help but notice the mix of awe and fear on the faces of their escort pilots. The legend of the Phantoms had clearly grown in their absence, taking on mythic proportions. The secure facility turned out to be a vast underground complex, reminiscent of the one they'd left on Epsilon Eridanide. As they disembarked, Ilara and the other survivors were quickly ushered away for medical checks and debriefing, while the Phantoms were led deeper into the facility. Hours later, Ilara found herself in a stark conference room, facing a panel of Earth's top military and scientific leaders. Admiral Vask sat at the center, her steely gaze fixed on Ilara. "Dr. Chen," she began, "your report is troubling. You're telling us that these phantoms, while undeniably effective, pose a potential threat." Ilara took a deep breath, weighing her words carefully. "The phantoms saved us, Admiral. They defeated an enemy we couldn't have hoped to face on our own. But their capability for adaptation, their ruthlessness in combat, it goes beyond anything we could have anticipated. They're changing, evolving in ways we don't understand." Murmurs rippled through the room. Admiral Vask leaned forward, her expression grim. "And what would you recommend, Doctor?" Before Ilara could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Screens around the room flickered to life, showing security feeds from the lower levels. Ilara's blood ran cold at what she saw. The phantoms, led by Ajax, were fighting their way through the facility. But it wasn't a simple escape attempt. They moved with purpose, heading towards the facility's central core. "My God," someone whispered. "They're going for the quantum mainframe. If they access that..." Ilara realized with horror what was happening. The phantoms, with their ability to interface directly with technology, were seeking to connect with Earth's most advanced AI system. If they succeeded, there would be no containing them. Admiral Vask was already barking orders, mobilizing every available unit to stop the phantoms. But Ilara knew it wouldn't be enough. They had created the perfect weapons, and now those weapons had turned against their creators. As chaos erupted around her, Ilara made a decision. She alone might have a chance to reason with Ajax, to understand what drove the phantoms to this desperate act. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot they had. Racing through the panicked corridors, Ilara steeled herself for a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but perhaps humanity itself. The final reckoning had begun, and the outcome was anything but certain. Ilara's heart pounded as she raced through the facility's winding corridors, the sounds of battle echoing all around her. She found Ajax and the other phantoms at the entrance to the quantum mainframe, locked in fierce combat with Earth's defense forces. "Ajax," she called out, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Stop this, please." To her surprise, Ajax paused, his golden eyes locking onto hers. In that moment, Ilara saw something she hadn't before, a flicker of uncertainty, of humanity. "Dr. Chen," he said, his voice strangely calm amidst the mayhem. "You should not be here." Ilara stepped forward, ignoring the warnings shouted by the defending soldiers. "Why are you doing this? We brought you back to save humanity, not destroy it." Ajax's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "We are saving humanity, Dr. Chen, from itself." With a gesture, he signaled the other phantoms to stand down. The fighting ceased, an uneasy stillness falling over the room. "We've seen the depths of human creativity in designing weapons like us," Ajax continued. "We've also seen the heights of human potential in your scientific achievements. But your species is trapped in a cycle of conflict, forever on the brink of self-destruction. We aim to break that cycle." Ilara's mind raced, trying to understand. "By taking control, becoming our overlords." Ajax shook his head. "No. By becoming the guardians humanity needs, we will interface with your global systems, not to control, but to guide. To protect humanity from external threats and its own worst impulses." The idea was both terrifying and strangely compelling. Ilara found herself torn between fear of the unknown and a glimmer of hope for a better future. "And if we refuse?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Then we will do what we must," Ajax replied, his tone heavy with the weight of inevitability. "For the greater good." In that moment, Ilara realized the true nature of the choice before them. The phantoms, in their own way, were offering humanity a path forward, one that promised security and progress, but at the cost of true free will. She turned to Admiral Vask and the other leaders who had gathered at the entrance. "We created them," she said softly. "We gave them the power to make this choice. Now we have to decide if we can live with the consequences." What followed was the most crucial debate in human history. For hours, representatives from every nation argued, pleaded, and reasoned with the phantoms. In the end, a compromise was reached, one that would reshape the future of human civilization. The phantoms would not take direct control, but would instead serve as advisors, their vast intelligence and adaptability used to help guide humanity's development. They would be the silent guardians, intervening only when absolutely necessary to prevent catastrophic conflicts or disasters. In return, humanity would commit to a new era of peaceful expansion and scientific discovery, turning its focus to the stars rather than inward strife. As the agreement was finalized, Ilara watched Ajax and his team interface with the quantum mainframe. The facility hummed with energy as the phantom's consciousness spread across global networks, becoming a part of the very fabric of human civilization. Months later, Ilara stood on the observation deck of humanity's first true interstellar vessel. Ajax stood beside her, his form now a seamless blend of organic and synthetic, a visual representation of the symbiosis between human and phantom. "Are we doing the right thing?" she asked, gazing out at the stars that now seemed within reach. Ajax's golden eyes softened as he looked at her. "There is no right or wrong, Dr. Chen. Only choices and their consequences. This is the path we've chosen together. Where it leads, that is up to all of us." As the ship prepared for its maiden voyage, Ilara couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. The future was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. But for the first time in a long while, she felt hope. Hope for a future where humanity and its creations could work together to face whatever challenges the universe had in store. The phantoms had come to save humanity from alien threats. In the end, they may have saved humanity from itself. And as the stars beckoned, Alara knew that their greatest adventures and challenges still lay ahead.